You're listening to Three Kitchens podcast, hosted by home cooks Erin Walker and Heather Dyer.
Are you tired of cooking the same old things? So are we. Let's all get inspired, cook better, and eat great food.
Hello. Welcome to this episode of Three Kitchens podcast. We are your hosts. I am Heather, and I'm here with Erin.
Hello.
We always feel like we don't know what to say. Okay, well, I thought we would do something that I think is simple and that you can kind of go any which way with, depending on what you've got and what you feel like, and that is a sheet pan dinner. The idea of it, obviously, is that you're putting as much of your dinner as you can on a sheet pan and cooking it all at once in the oven.
Okay.
So you have less to clean up. You know, you have one pan, and if you're able to line it with parchment or something, perhaps you hardly have to wash it. And you're really simplifying things. It's kind of like if you've ever done a tinfoil, you know, like when you go camping or barbecue to a barbecue or something.
Oh, yeah.
And you put like potatoes and onions and yams and whatever
like the
other
poor
kind of,
man's dinner or something, isn't it? And you put it in the fire pit and it all
you put
warms
it
up.
yeah,
And
you put it all in foil with like butter and salt and pepper, and then you just cook it all. So there's your veggies all together. It's kind of like that, but you're doing it in the oven. And I think the main benefit here is it's kind of like a one pot dinner, but on a pan. You don't have to worry about the timing of this dish and that dish, and is it all going to work out at the same time. You can probably feed a little bit of a crowd, certainly the whole family, with this one big pan. So I think one of the first sheet pan dinners that I ever learned and kind of introduced to my regular repertoire is from this book called Dinner, A Love Story by Jenny Rosenstrach.
ooh.
It's part memoir about learning to cook.
Oh, it's like a reading book.
It's how she and her husband kind of navigated like cooking for themselves and then introducing kids to it. And there's lots of recipes and some very practical tips about like sharing the duties. And anyway, I've had this book for a long time, and there's a few things I haven't looked in it in a long time. But I remembered when I was thinking about sheet pan dinners, I remembered this recipe, and it's just called baked sausage with apples, potatoes, and onions. And that's exactly what it is in a sheet pan. So you're doing whole small potatoes, so new potatoes, chopped up an onion, toss it with some olive oil, a bit of fresh thyme, salt and pepper, or whatever herbs you like. Put that on your pan, put some, this recipe says sweet Italian pork sausage, but you can use whatever, like say 4 sausages, put them on top of the vegetables, bake it uncovered for 45 minutes until the sausages are like, I'd say close to done. Flip them over.
Okay.
And then you're going to add chopped Granny Smith apples. Also toss with olive oil, salt and pepper. Scatter those around the sausage. This is at the 45-minute mark. Put the apples in. And then what I think that elevates this is 2 tablespoons of cider vinegar that you kind of drizzle over everything, put it back in the oven for 10 more minutes. And then you have sausage and vegetables with a really interesting apple in there. The vinegar kind of brightens everything up. And then we like to eat it with a good spicy mustard, like that one that we get from the Edelweiss European market over there. So you can see, very simple. That was one of the first ones that kind of introduced me to this concept of putting everything on one pan. And I remember when my dad became single after my mom passed away, and he was living on his own and he had to sort of figure out how to cook some things for himself. I wrote it down for him. I emailed it to him, and I'm like, here's like the most basic, just reduce it for one person, like cut this in half, or you'll be eating it for days. But so easy.
Yeah.
He regularly made that.
Nice.
And he was like, yeah, this is like so easy, and it tastes good. And then if you want to make some rice on the side or noodles or...
Absolutely. I like that you can adjust this for however many you're serving.
And if you have a bigger oven and you can have a bigger sheet pan, load it up, right?
Mm.
So I have made that a variation of that many different ways, but I like putting the sausage on top of the vegetables,
Yeah.
especially something that's fatty like a pork sausage, because the fat from it kind of helps flavor everything else. If it's a chicken sausage, you have to be careful not to cook it as long.
Okay.
They dry out. We like chicken sausages, but they cook faster and they dry out if you leave them too long. So you just have to be careful of that.
Yeah, and they're not as fatty, so
Yeah.
they probably won't drip down as much.
Yeah, you don't get quite that same. But if you're trying to
Interesting.
avoid the fatty pork in your
Maybe
diet,
there's a good suggestion.
there's a suggestion. Use a chicken sausage or a turkey sausage. You want things that will cook at roughly the same time.
Yes.
That's the trick with the sheet pan. That's why the apples go in at the last 10-minute mark, because
Right.
they don't need so long or they'll just be applesauce. There'll be mush in there.
Mm-hmm.
So just think about how long things typically bake or roast in the oven and adjust your when to add this, when to add that.
That's actually kind of nice because if you're chopping stuff up, you kind of get your first things done, put them in the oven, let it go, and then you can prep your other things, and then it's not like panic to get it all done at once.
Yeah, and in under an hour, you have at least your protein and vegetables, and then anything else you want on the side.
Oh, that's pretty easy to do. Nice. Okay.
So for us, I'm not cooking that. I just wanted to tell you about that very simple introductory recipe to sheet pan cooking. I
Oh,
found one that I have never made
okay.
before, and I want to try something.
Well, now I'm gonna have to make this sausage apple one because it sounds so
Mhm.
bloody good. I'm already hungry for it.
Let's try something a little different, which I have not made before, but we're going to try it. I'm going to make a sheet pan chicken tikka. So
All
this one
right.
has marinated chicken, thighs, drumsticks, or it says, or halved chicken breasts. You want everything skin on and bone in.
Mm,
I wouldn't do chicken breast. Not my favorite. I would do the thighs and drumsticks. I think
yeah,
that'll be much better.
I
So you're
agree.
going to marinate the chicken with the yogurt and spices. So this one is not as quick, start to finish, in under an hour. You got to do this in advance. But I think it sounds like it'll be worth
Yeah.
it.
And what vegetables are paired with this?
Okay, we've got potatoes and cauliflower.
I like the potato cauliflower. That's a
I know.
good.
It reminds me of other Indian dishes that I really love, like the aloo gobi and
Mm.
some of those other yummy yum things. This recipe suggests lightly pickling onions to put on top. We love,
I'll just grab the pickled onions out of my fridge.
yeah, there's that great recipe that you wrote up that's on our website for a red pickled onion. I make those all the time and we
Yeah.
eat them on everything.
Yep.
That would be delicious on here. I would say serve it on rice, maybe, or
Mm.
maybe in a pita. Chop up the chicken and the veggies and just put everything
Ooh.
into like a pita or,
Right. Any way that you
right?
can put it from pan to mouth.
That's true.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Yeah, I think this one sounds good. And I've never made it, so we're going to try it out. We're going to see. This is more like the next level sheet pan dinner. Now I've given you some ideas.
This sounds great.
We're going to try it out. Hey listener, have you visited our website? You'll find our entire catalog of episodes. Can you believe there are more than 170 of them, including the Speakeasy Cocktail series and almost all of our recipes?
It's easy to find. Just type in www.threekitchenspodcast.com or check the show notes for a link. Now, let's get back to the show.
All right, let's talk about this sheet pan dinner. I'm going to talk through the recipe as it's written, even though I actually made more
Okay.
because I don't know about you, but in my house, there are four of us. Three of them are boys of varying ages. And if I make four pieces of chicken,
There'll be a riot. Yeah.
yeah. And I've gotten to the point where I pretty much have to double the protein of just
Yeah.
about anything I make.
And then as soon as dinner's done, then it's second dinner.
Or they're like, what else is there? Is there any
Yeah.
dessert? Is there anything else to eat?
Times are getting tough.
Times are tough.
Yep. We're going to be like a haggard mess trying to keep up cooking for these children in a couple years. I'll have to quit podcasting. Sorry. I don't have time to talk about what I was cooking because I'm cooking again.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
Okay. So this recipe is written for 2 pounds of chicken, skin on, bone in, thighs or drumsticks. I didn't actually weigh mine, but I
Mm-hmm.
had a big package of thighs, and I think there were 10 pieces
Oh, nice.
total. But I did split my whole thing over two
Okay.
pans,
This
two
was where
sheet
my next
pans.
question was. Yeah.
Yes. Now, if you're just doing, say, 4 to 6 pieces of chicken, you could probably fit that in one pan. But if
Hmm.
you have to split it into two, like I did, I put them both in at the same time. Halfway through, I sort of rotated. I moved them one up, one down, like I
Yeah.
moved them around. But it worked.
Perfect.
You can do it that way. Okay.
Okay.
So 2 pounds of chicken. Then you're going to make a marinade, which is with ginger, garlic, yogurt, salt, chili powder, ground turmeric, ground cumin, granulated sugar, paprika, and garam masala. And then you want a fresh, well, this says if one fresh green chili, which could be like a jalapeno.
Okay.
What I had, because I forgot to buy a chili, but I realized I had in my freezer. One day I had like extras, and I just
Mm.
sliced them in half and took the seeds and the membranes out, and I tossed all those halves into a freezer bag, and they were in my freezer.
Ah,
So
brilliant.
I pulled out, I had a half a jalapeno, and then I had a half of a red chili that was almost as, not quite the same size as the jalapeno. I don't know what kind of chili that would have been exactly.
Ooh, I have seen them at the store as a red Fresno pepper.
Okay, that could be it.
And they look very similar in size to a jalapeno, but a little more like pointy witch hat shaped, upside down.
Yes, and a little shorter.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I had. So I just, because I had them in the freezer, I just took them out and chopped them up and put them into the marinade. So you're going to mix all that together, put your chicken in, and package it up either in a container with a lid or a freezer bag. Put it in your fridge. I did it first thing in the morning,
Mm.
intending to cook this for dinner. So, however long you have to marinate, longer is better. You could even put it in marinade, put it in the freezer, cook it at a later time.
Ooh. Oh, that's a smart
Yeah.
idea.
Okay, then the vegetables were potatoes. If you have big potatoes, cut them into smaller chunks. I started with those little round baby potatoes and I cut them in half. And one small or half of a large cauliflower. I used a whole head. I think it was even quite large. So,
It's easy to
like,
cook with the whole one, especially if you're cooking for our families.
yeah, they're not that big. Let's be
No.
honest. What's the difference between what you'd call a small one and a large one? They're not that much difference in size, right? So you want to cut those into florets, and as we always say, use a stem to chop that up and put that in there too. Don't
Hmm.
waste it. And then the vegetables just have olive oil, salt, and cumin seeds. Mix it all
Ah,
together.
okay.
And then you're going to put that on the pan. You're going to nestle your chicken that now you've marinated. You take it out. You're going to kind of put it in the pan amongst your vegetables.
Hmm.
And then you're going to roast this in the oven, 425 Fahrenheit, for about 20 minutes. And then flip the vegetables over if you need to. If you have 2 pans like I did, swap them around.
Yeah.
You don't have to touch the chicken though. You don't have to flip it or anything. Just leave it in there. And then back in for, say, another 20 minutes. I think I had mine in the oven probably about 40 minutes. And I just checked the temperature of the biggest piece
Hmm.
of chicken. And that's how I knew it was done. And meanwhile, while it was cooking, I had done some red onions with some sugar and red wine vinegar and had those sitting on the counter,
Yum.
soaking away to put on top at the end. And that's it. It's supposed to be simple and really very simple.
Question number one, you
Mhm.
didn't mention the chickpeas. Did you put them
Oh,
on the
I
sheet
did
pan
put, that's
too?
because they're not in the recipe. I
Okay.
did put chickpeas in there. I had a fairly large can of them. I just strained them. Make sure you rinse them until they're not frothy looking anymore. You know, when you dump out a can of
Yeah,
beans or
it's almost
whatever?
like you put them in a bubble bath at first.
Yeah, it looks kind of bubbly. Yeah, rinse it until that's clear. I just toss those in with my vegetables. Sorry, I forgot about that because it's not in
Okay,
the
good.
written recipe. I did that myself because I happen to love chickpeas with Indian
Yeah.
flavors. And also, as we recently learned, by adding pulses, something like chickpeas or lentils, into just
Hmm.
about anything, you get extra protein and fiber,
Hmm.
which we can all use. And onion. Sorry, there was a
Oh yeah.
small onion that I just chopped and put in. Gosh, my memory is
And
like
that too, yeah.
terrible.
It's
Okay,
okay. I
that is
just ate it
everything.
and I remember these things. Like,
Good, good.
okay, I really liked the chickpeas in there. I always forget how much I love roasted chickpeas, and I don't do it for a while. And then I'll probably roast chickpeas constantly for like the next 3 months or something till I'm sick of them, and then I'll forget about it again.
Hmm.
But you've just, woken me up again to how awesome that is.
Yeah.
And it was really good with the cauliflower and the flavors. I was surprised that the chicken wasn't spicier,
Hmm.
but I really liked the yogurt in the marinade. I thought that that came through really good in the flavor of the chicken.
I agree with the chili. Next time, I will put in more chili
Mm-hmm.
pepper. I wanted a bit more spice, not heat,
Mm-hmm.
but like spice to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think using, and maybe because they'd been frozen, maybe that makes a difference too. I'm not sure. I also kind of feel like the vegetables needed the same spice that went into the chicken.
True
The
enough.
vegetables did kind of just stay cumin and salt,
Yeah.
which were, it was good, but I think I would have liked more of that flavor on the vegetables. So I think adding that same kind of spice mix to the vegetables, I think that would be better.
Yeah.
A little more intense flavor I wanted out of it.
Mm-hmm. I like the method of cooking this. And I think you could really like change up and do any flavor you like you mentioned in the first half. But I think these Indian flavors go with it really good.
And I think probably like a little tzatziki sauce or something like that with it would
Ooh.
be good. Or
Ooh, do you remember that tomato choka that Chris was talking about to go on the side of his chicken pilau? He mentioned it was like a
oh,
fire roasted tomato with garlic and
yeah.
pepper and just mashed up and on the side kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would
Yeah.
be really good with it. But the onions, for sure, like having that pop of
That little
there should be a
pickled
pickled
onion.
something with everything.
Yeah.
Did your grandma have like the dish that had the like pickles and the olives?
Yes. Usually like the just mixed pickled vegetables. There's like little tiny cauliflowers in there and little onions in there and
Pickled
like, yeah.
beets were
Yes.
in one of the little,
Hmm.
yeah. See, that
Yes.
has gone out of style. I think that needs to come back to my table. I wonder if I
Mhm.
have one from somewhere.
The little pickle dish.
Yeah. I'm sure I've got somebody's pickle
It
dish
doesn't
somewhere,
matter what you
somewhere.
put it in.
Yes, it does. I only put
Oh,
things on my table that look amazing. No.
go to the thrift store. I bet you'd find
I
little
bet you'd find,
crystal pickle dish of some kind. Yeah.
right?
I like the idea, the one with the little handle. Pick it up and yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Something pickled with every meal. That's the
I
way to do
agree.
it,
This just needed that like hit of something.
for sure.
Or maybe like some kind of chutney, like a condiment with
Hmm.
it. I think you could even do a boneless chicken, make it easier for yourself, and at the end, take the chicken out, chop, 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 or shred it, and then put it into like a pita, put all the veggies in the chicken, and you've got a
Right.
sandwich.
Even with your leftovers, if you're going to go and make this, make the big pan, whether you need to or not, and shred all of that chicken and have this in your lunch going forward for the week.
Hmm.
I like being able to turn this into something that feels completely different when you have leftovers.
Yeah,
Because often when I have leftovers, I'm like, I just ate this. I'm
I know.
bored. I'm
I
so
know.
spoiled, right? So I want it to be something different. I like shredding and cutting it up idea.
We had it with rice, but I think you could also, it's just, meat and vegetables. You could have it with
Mm.
noodles. I've seen sheet pan dinners with gnocchi right on there. You're basically like roasting gnocchi. And
Mm.
if you have like any kind of oil or kind of juices in the pan, they kind of crisp up.
When I do like
Mm.
a one pan cast iron dealio,
Hmm.
I sometimes will put the gnocchi in there.
So if you wanted a little bit of a carb thrown into it, you could do something like that. And look for whatever ideas you can think of for a sheet pan dinner. There's
Mm.
hardly any dishes. It's so easy.
Yeah, I like this.
A little bit of chopping ahead of time, maybe marinating if the recipe calls for it. Sometimes you don't even have to do that. Make it easy for yourself.
And it makes another meal for the next day.
Hmm.
Checking all the boxes, Heather.
Check, check, check. This was a good one. I felt like I made up slightly for the artichokes. Not that it was my fault, but still, I feel like a big old wah wah.
You
And
feel
now I
like you
want to
can cook again.
say,
You're allowed into the kitchen.
I earned my little badge back.
Totally good.
And now for the fine print. Links to recipes and other things we talked about in this episode can be found on the show notes or our website, www.threekitchenspodcast.com. Come say hello on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, YouTube, and TikTok. We'd love to connect. And if you enjoy the show, pass it on. Word of mouth is the #1 way people learn about new podcasts. Thanks for listening.
We have fairly below average sized children. Why are they eating so freaking much?